so that at least you can just reflect on the man, Dr. Sawyer. Now, uh, first, tell us about what do you know about this man that we are eulogizing today.
Um, well, as you know, Dr. Sawyer in simple words, was a great teacher. He was, I know him as a great teacher. I know him as an exceptional academic, an educator, one who dedicated all of his life to education of the youth. I know him as a political leader, as a profound social scientist, political social scientist. I know him as a theoretician and practitioner. I know Dr. Sawyer as a peace builder, a peacemaker, the various facets of peace he's been associated with. There are many other things we can. I know him as a Pan-Africanist. I know him as an internationalist. Dr. Sawyer was actually, and I hate to say was, I like to continue to see him as living with us.
Mm.
He is a great communicator. Um, ELBC will remember, and many people who interviewed him before will remember what he was. He came out very clearly. There are not too many people who communicate more effectively than Dr. Sawyer.
Now, what age were you when you befriended Dr. Sawyer? When you knew him, what age were you? Were you at the time?
I had come to work. I came from school in Yekepa, came to Monrovia, and I was, I must have been like, what, 19, 20 years old when I came to Monrovia.
Okay.
And I saw Dr. Sawyer. They had started the movement for justice in Africa, and I saw him. The first time, I mean, people have been talking about these young people who were shaking our country.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Tipote,
Politically.
Dr. Tipote, Dr. Sawyer, Dew Twangler Mason. And I mean, these were extraordinary young people. You were hearing their names.
Mm.
And I had a scholarship to go to Sweden to do electricity because I had trained as an electrician.
Okay.
And so part of the reasons I was in Monrovia was getting a job as an electrician with the Freeport was to get the scholarship to go to Sweden to train as an electrical engineer.
Mm.
And then we're hearing about these young men, these extraordinary young men, and I saw Dr. Sawyer the first time we're passing on in a Cinco supermarket. It doesn't exist now, but opposite the Estro and Namwe Church was the supermarket.
Mm.
And we saw him getting down from his Jeep and walking with a jean trouser, a t-shirt. Simple man.
Mm.
And we're in a taxi, and everybody in the taxi said, "There is Dr. Sawyer." The taxi driver stopped, and we all saw him. And then the more I heard about what they were doing with Moja,
Mm-hmm.
and began attending the meetings, I said, well, look, I have to postpone this thing about going to Sweden to train as an electrician. I need to go to this university where the action is. But anyway, the question was, I wasn't a kid, I saw him and met them when I had already completed secondary school, and it was a period before I went to university.
Okay. Now, sorry, we've been distracted by but knowing him, Senator Kwame we said, especially during his days with the whole Moja formation, tell us what role did he really play in the formation of the movement for justice, the Mojas movement? What role did he really play then?
Well, if you know, they were. This was a period when the struggle for liberation of Africa was hot, and Liberia has a historical role in this process of the liberation of Africa. Sometimes we underplay our own roles, but these young people, many of them with huge education from the United States. They trained in Liberia and went to the United States. Many of them had come home with at least a minimum of master's degree, but they had PhDs. They were in their 20s, you know, and they were talking about the issues affecting our continent. So that was what drove them. That what drove them to form the movement for justice in Africa.
Okay.
And the justice that they were talking about was socio-economic justice. They were talking about the independence of our continent. You know, that was what I know, and that's what interested me. That drew me to them. The whole question of justice, whatever we did, must be underpinned by justice.
Okay, now let's move into, let's fast forward. I know, you know, like you spoke about what its role with the whole formation of Mojal and pushing for justice, social justice and economic, you know, empowerment and all of that. Now, we understand and we know, according to history, according to records, according to the country's history, he became an interim leader. How did he perform then when he served as interim president of our country?
Well, again, because of my long association with Dr. Sawyer, first as my professor, I told you I went to the university, then he taught us Social Science 102, which was Liberian Society. And there was hardly any person who entered the university who did not sit under Dr. Sawyer in that class. And that was talking about the history of our country from its foundation and understanding the things that will make us to love our country even more. So that was a position that qualified him to understand Liberia. So at the height of the war, well, in the beginning of the war, when it was very clear that Mr. Doe could not continue, and people thought that the way to end the war was to create an interim government that would not be headed by any one of the warring factions, including Mr. Doe. Dr. Sawyer was the one selected in Banjul, and I was brought into his government as an advisor on the peace process. So I worked with Dr. Sawyer from, he took over in 1990, and there was, I had been out of the country, I had been in exile from the military regime. So we all decided to come home to put hands around our comrade and also to serve our country. So I worked with him, and what can I say about that stewardship for 4 years as president of the interim government? It was extraordinary. I think Dr. Sawyer, you know, there are many things happening today. The practical aspect of deepening democracy was manifested during that period. Now, there was a period when there was war. There was a period when Liberia was basically, what you call the Republic of Liberia was basically controlling only a part of the country. When there were no resources, hardly any money existing for the president to work with, you know, yet that man demonstrated what you call huge issues of accountability. a very modest, humble gentleman. I mean, for those who worked directly with him, who had to do with resources, people wonder how he managed. They were at Duko. The government was based at Duko. He was eating plantain and cassava in the morning, and his wonderful wife, Comfort Sawyer, all of them, I mean, the staff, security people, everybody participated, shared whatever he had, whatever he did. So I don't know whether he had an income as a president for those 4 years. I don't know about that. Because I know as advisor on the peace process, which was my job to interact with all the international community members that came, whether it was President Carter, whatever, that I went on missions for the interim government, whether it was going to meet with Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, Sani Abacha, all these presidents, Jerry Rawlings. I was the one that he trusted to go, even though there was a foreign ministry, there was this and that. But I went on all the secret missions, and the trust that he reposed in me made it possible for me to play and we're taught modesty, we're taught humility, so you don't go claiming whatever you did it in the name of the president. And many people didn't know what I had to do. I had to go to all the warring factions. He kept an open line with Charles Taylor, with Prince Johnson, with others, and much later. And my task was to do that. Take the risk.
You had a very close link, and in fact, he enjoyed the sort of confidence he reposed in you, and so every time he was sending you on mission, what were his legs and his dislikes? Because I'm sure there's someone that you knew, you worked with, he enjoyed the confidence he reposed in you. So you knew everything that he liked and he didn't like.
Well, I mean, let me talk about what the person, and many people have written about him so far. I've been reading tributes from across the line. I mean, from Liberians, from West Africa, from Africa internationally. I mean, I've been reading tributes, and even there, I'm learning a little bit more from other people who interacted with him.
Okay.
One thing that Dr. Sawyer had was the ability to listen, ability to make sense of nonsense. I mean, this man had when there was an issue, you'd be surprised the people he sat to talk with first were his driver, the security people. He would be talking with them to know what people thought on the ground. I mean, he developed, he never had the problem, for those of us who worked with him, to sit with us for hours, to play on an argument, and you disagree with him, he listened. I don't know too many people.
He wouldn't take you offense if it
No, absolutely not. In fact, you can see him excited if there was a controlling view, if there was a alternative view to whatever he put forward. When you say something different from what he said, he would start. All right, okay. So if somebody trying to shoot you down, he tells them no. Let's listen to him, and it was genuine, And it didn't matter whether the person was a child or what. I take two young people and two of my children, two young children. My son, who is at the University of North Carolina at the moment, he had gotten his first degree. He came home, and worked with Dr. Sawyer. Dr. Sawyer took him on missions. You know, I mean, the huge roles he played, that we can talk about, how he helped settle conflicts, especially electoral conflicts in West Africa, in Africa. I mean, scores of experiences. On one of those things, I know he took my young son with him. And in talking with this young man, the young man wrote, sent a tribute from school in the States. He sent a tribute. And he said one of the things he saw was Dr. Sawyer calling him colleague. They would go to a meeting in the Gambia. When there was a problem in the Gambia, he was there. He carried him to a meeting and introduces him to the people, including heads of state. This is my colleague. He said he didn't know what to do with this. How this man calling him a colleague? He said, but after the meeting, he will call him and say, let's analyze what happened today. And he would listen to this young man who was only 20, 21 years old. He would listen to him. What he heard such a president said, President Jonathan or President Obasanjo or this person would have said, how he analyzed it, what was his understanding, you know, and what he thought should happen next. So these are the qualities of Dr. Sawyer. There are not too many people who have that. And that is why, you know, I mean, in all of the difficult moments of the 70s, the years of the 70s, he was such a person that even when Mr. Talbot was angry with the students or something happened, they would prefer to talk with Dr. Sawyer. When they were angry, they didn't want to talk with Tipote or want to talk to Drew Mason. They would say, okay, let Amos Sawyer come. That's the True Party. Under the military regime, it was the same. And one regime after the other, not only in Liberia, and that is something we need to know, that he played such a role. I mean, the elections in Nigeria that brought
Obasanjo?
No, that brought Buhari into power against Jonathan. Nigeria was on the brink of war, serious war. Many people don't know because of Sawyer's humility, we would never know some of the things that he did. He was the one. Somehow, Buhari was ready to listen to him, and Jonathan was ready to listen to him. This is a man who didn't have army. He wasn't coming from a country that had any more power than anything else. They were able to listen to him and avert a conflict.
You're listening to the Super Morning Show, rated on the OBC 99.9 and also frequencies across Liberia. We are today eulogizing former interim president, Dr. Amos Claudius Sawyer. And of course, to do that, we've invited Senator Comini, who worked with him. We'll be right back after the buzz of this water. Okay, we'll pause this one. I'm sure you are, listening to the SMS written on your BC. Now, he became interim president, Senator Comini, we said. With all his fight for social justice and economic empowerment, all of that, did he have the ambition of becoming, president legitimately of the country?
Well, let me tell you, when he took what happened in Banjul, when he was elected, there were Liberian leaders who were gathered in Banjul, and there was a discussion about who would be elected as the interim president. He didn't put himself forward. A group of other Liberians just overnight said, look, but this is the situation we've been fighting. We must not allow it into the hands. There was somebody who said, oh, they brought an idea, look, this one, we get one religious leader who would just be there. And everybody said, no. We needed somebody who understands the Liberian situation and who will be able to steer us towards a new democratic dispensation. And so they went to Dr. Sawyer, and he accepted. It was only then that he accepted. When he came back to Monrovia, this is in November of 1990, Mr. Taylor said, I mean, that was a government that was formed outside Monrovia. He would not, outside Liberia, he would not accept. We had another conference, a national conference at the Hotel Africa. There again, he was persuaded and he made himself available for service. When the time came for the creation of a new government, after Charles Taylor came and all of the discussion, and there were 7 parties were being put together, he was one of the people that was encouraged to run. But when his longtime comrade, Dr. Tipote, another longtime comrade, Bacchus Matthews, all wanted to run, he said he would stay out of it. He stayed out of it to give them a chance to it. Of course, unfortunately, that coalition broke up. That broke up, and that's one of the national experiences we had.
So, in another word, his ambition for the presidency was not that high.
No, it was. He was a man who wanted to serve, and he was prepared to do anything to serve. I mean, after being interim president, he went back to teach. He was teaching, and I was president. I was one of those invited when the University of Indiana in the United States, a great university, honored Dr. Sawyer with an honorary doctorate degree. On that day, when they were honoring people, there were people who had contributed $300 million to the growth of the university. Dr. Sawyer was the only person of the people that were honored who had no dime, who contributed nothing. The only thing they singled out was his ideas, his humility, his commitment to education, to academic life, he was a special person. That's what they said. And I was so proud. And that is the nature of man. I've been reading, what you call it? I've been reading tributes. There was a moving tribute that was written by none other but our Minister of Finance, Sam Tue. You have to read it. This was a young man graduating from high school who Sawyer, in 1993, he was graduating from high school, and Sawyer was interim president, but went to Tottenham High School to give them he spoke as a commencement speaker. Now, Tue covers the whole expanse of his speech and the engagement and how he weaved his whole life, his leadership style to what we have today, how we can make our country better. It is an extraordinary, there are several others I've read from Nigeria, from the AU, from all over the place. But I'm using this case of Sam Tue's because He's one of the leaders today on the ground. And if he can write, that means he wrote the way he wrote with a belief in somebody. Maybe they didn't give him all that he was. I know he was riding, former president, he was riding a very old car in town, yeah. You know, very, very old car. They didn't give him all the support he needed for the governor's commission and all that. But on his death, the kind of recognition, you know, it's so true. When I read it, it's so well written, you know, that I say, at least when you do good, no matter whether people tell you thank you at the moment, there are many people who don't forget. And I think Sam Tuer did a wonderful job at it, you know. I hope that's what his government believes.
Okay,
you know.
Now, we'll be open the lines, but I would like to hear from you, Senator Community Wilson. What do you think young people, people who are still existing, politicians, those who are not politicians, people in government, those who are in government, oppositions, what do you think we can take from the life of Dr. Sawyer? What are those attributes, those qualities you think we as a people can really take from his life and better ours today?
Well, if one look at what happened in the 4 years of his presidency, I mean, the thing you have now where people, I don't know whether it is encouraged now, but journalists calling the president, the hour with the president or whatever. Tom Kamara used to do it with Amos Sawyer, where the line was open and people asked all kinds of questions. It was at the time when there was war. There were people fighting to remove him from office. Dr. Sawyer maintained the kind of leadership working with all diverse opinions. You know, there were all the different political parties, opposition groups were here. I mean, people were complaining that a newspaper that was controlled by Charles Taylor was operating in Monrovia, you know, and people wanted that newspaper closed down. Sawyer said, if that's what he wants, to express his view for us to know it, let it be. There was no view that Dr. Sawyer did not take into consideration.
So he was highly tolerant.
Very, very. And that is why for 4 years, he ran the government with diversity. And it made us stronger with all the firepower that did. You know, Mr. Johnson, Prince Johnson, used to come from his Carway base, drive to Brewer, go up towards Duka to the Salvatore residence, park his car there. And he would rain insults on Dr. Sawyer, he whatever. He would do that. The ECOMOG people will come and say, there's a madman down the road. We need to get him out of there. He's talking some nonsense. Sawyer say, but he's not doing anything. He's just talking. So allow him to stay. And Prince will do it until he will leave. I mean, so we're keeping in Monrovia, under Sawyer's administration, a huge diversity. He sent me on mission. And I went on one occasion, I was going to speak to Charles Taylor. And he gave me a letter. There was a discussion about what to call Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor insisted he should be called Mr. President. So Sawyer wrote this letter, and he said, Mr. President of the National Patriotic Assembly, and the Honorable Charles Taylor, and all the flowers, put it there. And I went to Banga. I delivered this letter, and first I was asked to address a meeting. So I got up to say, and I didn't call Charles Taylor Mr. President. They almost killed me. Then we went in the evening, they organized something to his mansion in Banga. And there, with all these young fighters all around the place singing, we'll see tonight whether they met where you will call our president. So I got there, and I said, Joe Moba is the MC. And I stood up, and I said, Mr. President, oh! So Amos Oyo recognized Charles Taylor as president. What they did not know, and what many people did not know, by the time I came to Monrovia, it was I had betrayed. I got some diamond from Charles Taylor, that's why I call him president. Many people did not know that I had carried a letter in which Amos Sawyer called Charles Taylor Mr. President. But what they also did not know is that what president was it? The letter said, Excellency, Mr. President of the National Patriotic Assembly. In Liberia, there was nothing in our national discourse, there was nothing called National Assembly, Patriotic Assembly. So if that what he wanted, let it be. Mr. Taylor knew that he was being called not President of the Republic of Liberia. He didn't announce it, but Radio Banga International, Radio Liberia International was playing my voice. Mr. President, we come to the cabinet meeting with Dr. Sawyer. The whole cabinet stood up against me. I was a traitor. So I look at Sawyer, he looked at me, and he called me that evening in the morning for breakfast. I say, I've come to resign because, and that. Then he said, he laughed. He said, you want me to resign too? Because I wrote the letter. They don't know.
So that's why you knew what you were doing.
So you see, the wonderful ways to engage. I go to Prince Johnson base, and with George Luvina Ash Thompson, we're going around showing that Sawyer was ready to resign. If only we could do this concomitant clause, that people would disarm and power would be turned over to them. So Prince and us had that is another story.
Yeah, surely.
But I can tell you what people will have to remember, especially the governing authorities. First is that you must have an open ear to alternative views. Having alternative views is good because it helps you develop your intellect.
Surely.
When they say Sawyer is a wise man, it's simply because he was the last to talk. He listened. We had a group of young people working with him. The whole group, what they call him, Dusty, the Tom Kamara, the Tiawan Gonglo, everybody they knew something. They had their voice.
Okay.
But he would listen. And when he come out, he will be able to summarize what came out of what everybody had said. And everybody will leave that room believing that Sawyer has taken into consideration what they had said in the discussion. So this is something to learn. Our country will be a better place. We know that it's not possible for one person or one party to rule. No party has all the manpower, has all the ideas. You have to have a certain openness. This is something that we must learn from Amos Sawyer.
Okay.
That is left with us to make our country stronger with diversity.
Okay, you're listening to the Super Money Show right here on your BC 99.9. After the buzz of this song, I make sure I open the lines for you. You're listening to the Super Money Show right here on your BC. My machine is trying to trip on me here, so no, there's something I'm trying to play and I'm still finding it. Okay.
past unfold. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. As I travel on life's pathway, I know not what the years may hold. And as I ponder, hope grows fonder. Precious memories flood my soul.
Okay, you're listening to the Super Money Show right on the OBC. And of course, we try to eulogize former interim president Dr. Amos Claudius Sawyer. And of course, to do that with us, we invited Senator